Warning, MF Uncensored contains adult language and discussion. Listener discretion is advised.
We're a couple of misfits. We're a couple of misfits. What's the matter with misfits? That's where we fit in. We're not Duffy and Dilly. Don't go around willy-nilly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to MF Uncensored. Don't forget, if you guys are listening to us on the go, you can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, your mom's closet, and basically anywhere you guys get a podcast. Now, we have something special. We have something unique. We have something different because it's not just Paul doing the intro, as Paul typically says. Well, he's doing the intro. We have a very special episode. It's a topical episode. It is not an interview. And not only is it just me in the studio, but I also have Ronnie. Ronnie, how are you?
Hello, everyone. I am doing well. Paul, how about you?
I'm doing awesome. This is so much fun because normally it's me doing the intro and then putting on a pre-recorded interview that we did 3 months ago. And we also have Rob in the studio. Rob, how are you?
I am not Rob. I'm Lobbed.
Lobbed.
Remember, we're
Lobbed.
disguising my
Yep.
name for the purposes of this talk.
Now, so we've been racking our brains because MF Uncensored was originally created as supposed to be like an after hours, after the podcast show. And we'll be honest, there are times where we record for like an hour and a half on a Friday at 9 o'clock. And then at the end of it, my signature catchphrase, which I don't know why is on a t-shirt at this point, is "get out of my house."
Yeah.
But so we wanted to, we had an idea for a show, and we really wanted to, and this was Rob's idea, and it was a good one, and it just kind of resonated with all of us because it is a perfect topic for an MF Uncensored episode because it's not really a superhero topic. It's not a movie topic.
Nope.
For that, you can see Multiverse Fancast or the Cinematic Adventures podcast.
It's a
But
life topic.
it is a life topic.
I said
A wife topic?
A life topic. But we are going to be talking a little bit about marriage and love and relationships. If you guys listen to Ronnie and I, we talked about New Year's resolutions are bullshit. That was one of our favorite
Yes.
episodes to do. And a lot of people responded very well to it. So we wanted to do another topical episode. And what better, and Rob was one that pointed this out, we're all in different stages of our lives right now. For the fact that we've been friends for years, so we've all known each other. I'll even be honest, Rob and his family were some of the biggest supporters when we first started podcasting, and they're the reason that we really got a good head start with equipment, and we're not using that Blue Yeti microphone that's sitting next to us right now. So we've known each other for years, and we've seen different dynamics shift with our friendships and our own personal relationships. It went from Ronnie and I being bachelors when we first started, and Rob being married, I don't even know. 6 years ago, you were married for how long, Rob?
6 years ago?
Yeah.
19.
Yeah, so like a long time. And then, Ronnie and I have a unique perspective where we experienced a lot of each other's relationships for most of our lives because we've been friends for so long. Best men at each other's weddings, along with Sean from Cinematic Adventures. I kind of wish he was here as the one bachelor left in our group.
Last man standing.
But
Tim Allen, that's a great show.
great show. But
See, I think of the Bruce Willis movie Last Man Standing, the Western.
and this is why our podcast is going to go all sorts of weird ways tonight. But for me and Ronnie, we I'll always say that Ronnie was always there whenever I was seeing somebody. It was always Ronnie whose opinion I valued the most. And Ronnie and I saw each other through breakups and new girlfriends and new relationships. So this is going to be an interesting episode, and I'm really excited because you got Rob, who brings a lot of perspective and a lot of
Well, no,
perspective. I didn't say wisdom. I was going to say
I wasn't
wisdom.
going to say even perspective. Just the only thing I can fully claim is experience.
I was going to say, he's got the most experience.
Yes.
I did things wrong. Is what I'm saying.
I did more things wrong than you guys have.
There's a reason we didn't invite my wife onto this show because she would have a different take on.
See, that would have
my
been great if
perspective.
all of our wives were here.
Not
with
gonna
us.
lie, I do want to do a part 2 where the wives have a conversation.
Yes.
But so
I think most of their conversation about us would be them just rolling their eyes, shaking their heads, and looking at the floor.
You guys know this is not video. They can't see you rolling your eyes at us.
they haven't said a word in 32 minutes. But
It's our highest rated podcast.
Meanwhile, all the wives are sitting there going, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So before we get started, though, a couple of house cleaning things. Number one, first and foremost, if you guys are looking for more of our content, please check out our website, themisfitfaction.com. There you'll find links to not only all of our other podcasts, including the Multiverse Fancast, MF Uncensored, and Cinematic Adventures, but you'll also find links to Rob's articles, my half-assed articles. You'll also find links to our store, guys. Ronnie does a lot of work on the store. He's constantly trying to improve it and trying to find new products for us. We have a brand new MF Uncensored sweatshirt that just went live. Obviously, we're in the springtime where it's going to be bonfires and beer weather and wearing a sweatshirt outside. So check it out. We would love for you guys to pick up yours. I just placed my order tomorrow. I thought I ordered it today, but so make sure you guys check that out. We have a ton of stuff on there.
At the time of recording.
At the time of recording, yes. I've ordered it already now that you're listening to it. Now, also, if you guys are looking to start your very own podcast, don't forget, we have a sponsorship program for you guys, an affiliate program. If you guys are looking to start your own show, if you guys go to podbean.com/misfitfaction, there you'll find a link to us, and you'll get I think a whole month of podcasting for free. Podcasting's not cheap. So if you guys are looking to start your own show and you don't know how to get started, reach out to us, use our link, and get started. And we're always looking for new shows to add to our network. Or if you guys have your own business or online service that you guys offer, if you guys go to sponsorship.podbean.com/misfitfaction, you guys will get $100 of free advertising. A thank you from us to all of our loyal listeners. And of course, I cannot start a podcast. I will never do a podcast without mentioning Raise Energy. Ronnie, what are your thoughts on Raise Energy? Off the cuff.
Well, it gets me going in the morning and when I'm feeling a little tired. You know, they have a lot of different flavors that, you know, some are good, some are bad, just like with any energy drink. But the best thing about it is the fact that there's no sugar added to them, so there's no like crash that you get or anything like, which is a positive, because a lot of the energy drinks, you get them and they work for like a couple hours, then all of a sudden you're like dead tired. While this one, it doesn't. But I love Raise. Their parent company, Rep Sports, has a lot of great stuff as well. You know, they do a lot of like your nutritional stuff, you know, protein powders, helping with weight loss. They have like a sleep drink that you can take, and
I like the hypersleep. I actually do the hypersleep. So just so you guys know, I'm actually wearing a Raise Energy Sport at the second shirt. And I just took a picture of it. When I release this episode, I'm going to release the picture of it on Twitter.
Do it. You won't.
On Twitter. Twitter.com/misfitfaction.
Boom.
Follow us. But if you guys are enjoying our show and want to try out Raise Energy, go to repsports.com and at checkout, enter the code, I believe, Misfit89. Because that's what year Ronnie was born. You'll get a discount at checkout, excuse me. Yes. So make sure you guys check that out. We get stuff every month from them, and we are big supporters of Rep Sports and Raise Energy. So now we're going to jump into topics, because no commercial break, no change into the interview. So we're going to talk about, first and foremost, we're going to tell you guys where we're at in our lives with our significant others. So let's start with the most seasoned. Experienced? Is that the best?
Experience. Season.
What kind of season are we talking about? Paprika?
Salt and pepper.
Salt and pepper?
Yeah,
and heavy D up in this limousine?
We're going to start with Rob. So, Rob, tell us a little bit about...
So, Lauren... am I allowed to say her name?
Absolutely.
Sure. Lauren and I.
She's not
Everyone else knows
she
our
doesn't
names.
listen.
Hi, Lauren.
So, she and we met in college, and which was good and bad. Because we met so young. You know, it's really difficult when you meet the person you want to spend the rest of your life with when you're so young, because you don't really know who you are. And then when you get married young, you're trying to figure out who you are, as well as with, you know, and marriage is hard enough. Marriage is probably the hardest job I've ever had in my life. And I don't say that derogatorily. I mean, because it's something you literally have to work at all the time. And so when we got married, I was 23 when I got married. Yeah, can you imagine doing that at 23 now? You know, because that for you guys, that would have been almost 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Just about, yeah.
Yeah, and so I've been married. We married a year out of college, and we dated for 2 years, and we're engaged for a year. So, you know, we were together. We've been together now. Married, it'll be 25 years this June, but it'll be 28 years together, milestone. All of us. Yeah, it's a lot, and it's nice because we're still. It is good too in the sense that we're still very young, and so as a result of us trying to figure out who we were so young, it formed like a really, really strong, solid foundation, because the two of us were so stubborn that we were like, I'm not leaving you, you're going to leave first. And like we were that, we were that close to one another. So, because there were so many times where marriage is hard. There's so many times you do want to call it quits over the years. But I was saying this to someone today that love is literally it's not a feeling. It's a choice. You wake up in the morning and you look at your significant other and you're like, I don't feel love right now because, she kept me up all night snoring and I don't feel it, but I'm going to choose to love her because I've made that commitment. So it's we've been together 28 years. And so I have a lot of perspective, I guess, and a lot of experience with it. And I've the things I believed in the first and second year, I really don't believe now anymore. And that's, I think, for the better. I've been lucky in the sense that every year has been better than the previous year.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned the first and second year because Ronnie and I are at that point. Melanie and I, producer Melanie, Bibliophiles Assemble Memily, if you guys are on Instagram.
Did you just call her Memily?
No, Melanie. Producer Melanie.
It sounded like memory.
I rolled into it too much. But Melanie and I have been together for about 4 years, just about. I knew 6 months in that I wanted to marry her. I knew it. I got the ring within that time. And I knew that this was the person I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. And I do agree. It is a choice. It is completely a choice. I also do believe that Melanie and I were always, the universe meant for us to get together. It's funny when Melanie and I talk about our relationship because there were times where her and I interacted and didn't even realize who, like here's an example. For those of you guys who don't know, Ronnie and I, we met through our Taekwondo school where Ronnie's currently running one. I taught there for years and then my career path changed and I still have strong ties to it. I'm there, 2-3 times a week. Ronnie's there all the time because, that's what he does. And I actually did a birthday party for Melanie's nephew and niece. So her and I met years ago and didn't even realize it. Ronnie and I went to see Kevin Hart at, where did we go?
Bethel Woods.
Bethel Woods. Melanie was at the same show on the opposite end of the stadium. The universe always meant for her and I to get together, and I fully believe that. But we're at that point where we've been married together for 2 years after being together for about 4. We're about to go on our honeymoon. We're at that stage where things are getting very real. And, we're talking about the things like the finances, like what are we going to do next? What are our plans? Kids, cats, dogs, etc., whatever it is. So I like that Rob brings it up that it is a choice. You get past that whole, you wake up every morning and you're like,
butterflies and flowers blooming and
And I fully believe, even though I have very little experience with marriage, it's only been 2 years. We're a COVID bride and groom. And unfortunately we had to, when we were supposed to get married, COVID hit. We had a ceremony courtesy of Ronnie over here, and that's a whole other podcast episode. And then we had our reception a year later. And we are very fortunate that during that time we were tested. We were challenged with a lot of things that especially the older generation just didn't understand. Like for Rob got married at 23-ish, right? 23?
No, you're right.
I got it. So 23, and that was the norm.
No.
To a point. Like, it used to be like...
In, 1920.
I would even argue my stepdad got married to his first wife at 19 or 20.
And that's why it's his first wife.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's funny how marriage has gotten progressively later and later.
Yeah.
And I think people realize that you don't know who you are in your 20s. And
not in the slightest.
And Rob and Lauren have a great relationship in that they both realize that. And it's the couples that don't realize that you don't know who you are. Your 20s are a time of self-discovery. Your teenage years are the years of you fighting against everyone, including yourself. Mm-hmm. It's fighting the system. It's fighting your parents. It's fighting how you feel versus how people feel. In your 20s, you're like, well, I'm going to try the things that I want to try and then find out what I like. And it's not until your late 20s that you really kind of start to realize these are the things I like, these are the things that I don't like.
I have to say, I think actually the 20s were my least favorite time of life.
Which is not the current conception now. Nowadays, your 20s are like the time.
I wouldn't relive my 20s. I did. It's too much too much like trying to figure out everything and who you are and value systems, and they're constantly changing because I know for me, the two of us came out of college and we were like, we're gonna change the world, and then we met the world and we're like, oh God, the world sucks. And you start to temper your expectations, and it's a crushing time.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than realizing how small you are in this world. But for me, there's nothing better than having that same person next to me that's like, hey, I realize it too, but let's kick it in the ass. Yeah. Let's do the best we can. And I'm very fortunate. I married my best friend, and I tell Melanie that almost every day. Not you, Ronnie.
I was confused for a
Ronnie's
second.
like, we're not married.
But for me, I'm very lucky, and it's evident. When I did Ronnie's best man speech, and I killed it because his brother sucked. And I'll say, so, like, one of the things that I mentioned was that it's very important that your significant other being friends with your friends. Mm-hmm. Melanie, my wife, producer Melanie, is friends with my friends. Like, she'll text Ronnie or text Sean or text Rob and be like, hey, like this, or Snapchat or whatever. And I never have to, like, second guess it. It's not like, well, why are you texting Ronnie? Why are you not texting me?
Gorgeous.
Because y'all gorgeous, you crazy son of a bitch. But I don't know why you're a 1920s gangster too, Paul.
Yeah, see.
Yeah, we're going to the speakeasy after this. But that I think that's an important part of marriage that people don't realize is that your significant other, there's nothing wrong with them being not only your best friend but friends with your friends.
So, how long have you been married, Ronnie?
So
7 minutes.
That is not true. It's been just over a month.
All right.
Yes. So I am fresh meat, new to the game, and
and we should say for our listeners who don't know us that well, for all three of us, this is our first and hopefully only marriage.
Yes.
Yes,
correct.
I want to say that,
Yes.
none of us we're like, I was married to someone else and then
Yes.
no, this is all of our
This is number one.
first wife.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, there is nothing wrong with getting divorced if things are not right.
I just say that for perspective of our listeners.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rob, you talked about, you guys were in college when, you and Lauren first met and started dating. So it's funny. So me and Jacqueline have known each other for 16 years. Mm-hmm. So we used to train together in Taekwondo.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, we did. And that's how we met, like I said, 16-ish years ago. And back then, we kind of sort of had a thing. We both liked each other. Things happened back then.
I remember.
Quote unquote innocent kind of things. Back then.
You passed her a note.
Yeah.
In the dojon that says, "Do you like me?
Check
I
yes.
like
Check
you.
no.
Check yes."
Yes.
Should I put my shoes on?
No, a little bit more than that. But so years passed where we didn't talk anything. Like we lost connection. She moved and everything, and then she ended up working with my brother, and that's how we kind of reconnected about 3 years ago or so. And ever since we kind of came back into each other's lives, it was just like this spark, like it just like, this is it, and we dated for some time and got engaged, and let's see, that was August of last year. So that's trying to do math now, about 7 months later,
about
we were
8 months,
married.
yeah.
7-8 months later, we got married, and it was one of those things where I kind of walked into a different situation than both of you because she had a kid from a previous relationship and everything. So, it was one of those where I kind of walked into it, and not only did I have to step into the husband role, but I also stepped into the stepdad role as well and everything.
And I'm sure we will have another podcast where we talk about being fathers and potential fathers. Not that anyone's pregnant. No one is. We've already established that before, unless something has happened in the last 20 minutes.
Speaking of what you were just talking about, what Paul alluded to earlier about, your significant other being friends with your friends and everything. It's funny. So Melanie and Jacqueline have never met before I started dating Jacqueline, right? Mm-hmm. And Melanie was actually one of Jacqueline's bridesmaids because they got so close.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, in the matter of a year, because, you know, me and Paul were living together. So it was like, you know, they would see each other. They'd hang out all
almost
the time.
by necessity, and then it just became chemistry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you know, you talking about being pregnant. Melanie and Jacqueline have
Had that conversation.
have had that
Okay.
conversation of we should get pregnant at the same time. Our kids born around the same time.
I like how
grow
they
up.
planned that.
Yeah, right?
Like we're not included.
But, you know, like, so our kids
'cause
can
they're not
grow up
planning-
and be friends together like me and, you know, Paul and I have been, you know, for the
Even though
past-
you and I hated each other
yes.
when we first met.
Yeah. But, you know, so it's one of those things where it's nice that your friends get along with your significant other, and your significant other gets along with your friends as well, and everything. Because if that doesn't happen, then it's kind of like, well, what do? I really love my significant other. I really love my friends. And now you're torn between, well, who do I choose between? But the fact that, you know, I don't have to, and you know, Paul said, to make that decision and everyone just loves each other is just a beautiful thing.
So, Rob, you've been married the longest out of all of us. We do respect your, as much as we love to tease each other and
Yes.
bust each other's balls. We do like you and Lauren have such a great relationship. Now, Ronnie just mentioned the challenge of introducing a significant other to a friends group and stuff like that.
Right.
Have you ever had that issue where your significant other and your friends or even your family clashed?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Lauren is very much tied to her family. She loves her family. She spends time with them as much as possible. Her mother is still alive, and she sees her. I'm sure she'll be seeing her tomorrow. She goes to see her as much as possible, and she truly enjoys it. Like, her mother is her friend. My family, she has clashes with. A lot of them are because my parents are not college educated. They are very lower working class. And as a result, they also have like a 1950s mentality of the roles of men and women. And you know Lauren. Lauren is not going to stand for being...
Lauren's a woman of 20, 35.
Yeah, she is extraordinarily progressive, so she does not stand for that. And so there is clashes there, and sometimes you just do the best to make it work. Sometimes it's, you know, there are issues that come up.
But that's the thing. Sorry to cut you off,
No,
but the clashes are needed.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
like not constant clashes, but you need to have the clashes, because if everyone was to get along and like the same things, have the same mentality,
Right.
you know how boring life would be?
Yeah, and to be honest, if there aren't clashes, let me rephrase that. If there aren't times where you have disagreements, then someone is bottling it.
Yes.
And eventually it's going to explode, and not in a good, in a way that usually ends in, like, you know,
Unhealthy
paperwork
and- yeah.
being developed or abuse.
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
absolutely. So yeah, there've been, you know, and as we get older, we get more and more homebody-ish, and I think you guys
10 trillion%. We're
Yeah.
sitting in my house on a Friday night. It's 10 o'clock at night,
Right.
And we're
Yeah.
like, this
If
is
it
this is a
wasn't-
way better
What?
If
alternative.
this was 10 years
I
ago
know.
and it wasn't for this, we would be out right now.
We'd be drunk by now.
Or we'd be drunk. Maybe not be out or get on our way to being
We'd be
out,
ready
but
to-
we definitely
getting
would have
ready
been
to go out.
pre-gamed up already.
Yeah, we you know, we went out and saw the Batman, and
Lauren was falling asleep.
Lauren was so miserable because it was so past her bedtime. You know, for us, they were making fun of me at school the other day because I said, you know, you all send me text messages at 8:30, and they're like, why is that late? I'm like, yeah, kinda. I'm in bed already.
My boss sent me a text message at 9:30 last night, and I saw it at 4:10 this morning, and I was like, oh, well, I'm in trouble.
So, like, I find that as we get older, you tend, and this is typical of relationships and of anyone in general, you tend to have fewer friends the older you get. That you tend to be more homebody. You know, I'm very centered with my wife and my son, but you know, like today, my son had all of his friends over, and so, you know, that was nice that we just got to see him and see all of them and everything. But it's the desire to go out and to do things and have friends it wanes over the years.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny you say that, because one of the reasons that not only so for those of you guys who don't know, we took a big hiatus from podcasting. For Ronnie and I especially. Ronnie and I started basically what became the Misfit faction. We started it with the Multiverse Fancast, and then we slowly introduced, Rob jumped in for the occasional episode. Sean jumped in once in a
blue moon,
every 8 months. And then I remember the feeling of, I had just moved out because Ronnie and I lived together with our friend Sean, and we thought, all right, we're going to podcast every month. And then,
so funny.
Well, the three of us, me, Ronnie, and Rob we did a Crisis on Infinite Earths episode, and the audio didn't take. No. And it was so discouraging, and it was so upsetting, and we just never got back to it afterwards. But once COVID hit, and suddenly we were like, man, I miss my friends. I miss socializing. Yeah. That was when I remember calling you guys and being like, hey, I called you from the parking lot of Daryl's house around the corner. For those of you guys who don't know, Daryl Hall from Hall & Oates.
Hall & Oates, baby.
But I remember, I called Rob. I texted Ronnie. I was like, hey, I want to restart this because podcasting is an excuse for my friends and I to get together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's why if a weekend goes by that we're not podcasting, I feel like there's something missing.
Yeah.
But
good. I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that. I feel that way too.
Yeah. And for me, that's why it's so important that Melanie's super supportive, and I know Jackie's supportive, and I know Lauren's like, take him. She said those words to me.
She's in bed on a Friday night, I'd say easily by 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Yeah. But
so right now she's definitely asleep.
She's definitely asleep.
Oh, Jacqueline too.
Oh yeah.
Melanie probably too. I mean, even I have an early work day tomorrow, but I was like, whatever, man. I want to this is what we want to do.
We're
but
men.
So. Rob, I believe you had a couple of talking points that you wanted to bring up, so we're going to do that right now.
So what I was thinking about was how, and I'm curious as to see where each of us come from this. Mm-hmm. So there was a book that was written back in 1992 by Gary Chapman, and I believe he used to be married to Amy Grant too. Gary Chapman wrote this book. It's called The 5 Love Languages, and his all right. So. You familiar with this?
I hate the 5 love languages.
Okay, so I figured it's something that's brought up a lot in the 6 hours that you usually have to talk with the pastor or whatever beforehand. I'm guessing you heard about it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say why I hate the 5 love languages really quick. I respect it. I like the concept. I like that my partner knows what my love language is. I feel that a lot of people use it as an excuse for not doing what they're supposed to do. Okay. So here's an example. Let's say so I think the love languages are like physical touch, gifts,
affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. Very good.
Thank you. So Melanie and I did this. I know hers, she knows mine, but let's say my love language is physical touch. I like to be touched. I like to be loved. I like to be this. But my partner, whoever they are, theirs is words of affirmation. That I've seen couples, and couples come to mind as I'm saying this, where, well, yours is physical touch, mine's the words of affirmation, so I don't want to touch you because it's not mine.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they use it almost as an excuse, and they're like, well, mine is this. So the point of love languages is to learn how your partner interprets love, and to try to reciprocate that and teach them yours so they can show it to you. It's not, well, this is mine, this is yours. I don't like yours.
Right, no.
So that's why I don't hate the book. I don't hate the concept. I hate how people use it.
How they misuse it, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Misuse it. That's a better phrasing.
So my question is to each of you, and I'll answer it too, and I don't even know how I'm going to answer it, is how do you tell your wife that you love her?
Easy. So in multiple ways.
Yeah.
So I know for her, because we just went, when we talked to our officiant for our wedding, he asked us if we knew about the 5
love languages.
Thank you. I blanked on that for a second. And, we answer them like what we think. And what's funny is the fact that we're very similar. So we're very lucky that we have a similar love language. Yeah. So it kind of works out. So, for us, I'm more so quality time than she is, but she does do the quality time. For her, a lot of it is just physical touch and words of affirmation, right? So knowing that, I know, when I come home from work and, she's, cooking dinner for us or whatever it is, just because she gets home a little bit earlier. That's the only reason why, right? I walk in the door. Hey, how are you? How was your day? Kiss, hug, all that, right? I'll even call her actually when I leave work and be like, hey, on my way home from work, and everything. And we have a quick conversation and everything. So I know that she likes to hold hands and everything. She likes to cuddle while we're laying in bed, and I'm not, now that the weather's getting warmer, I'm not a big cuddler because I get hot.
It's hot.
I get hot so quick and everything. But I'll sit there. I'll cuddle her for a little bit.
I'll cuddle together.
and then I'll be like, all right, and I'll roll over.
Right.
And she'd be like, what?
But
What do
she
you do?
didn't
But
get-
we're
she
cuddling.
She didn't get her need filled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's there's all those things where I'll do nice things, or I'll just text her like, hey, love you, just out of the blue and everything like that. So just those little things that I know she, I guess, needs.
Okay.
I guess in a way. I guess
Not
you could
even
say
need, just how she interprets love.
Exactly. The fact that I know that, I'm more aware and conscious about how I show my love to her, even if it's not really what I need. I don't need the words of affirmation because growing up, I was never really told from, my parents, oh, love you, good, they would say good job, everyone.
Get a job.
Things like that. So, to me, you saying that you love me, I'm like,
That's meaningless to you.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I love you too.
Shake hands. Great job.
Yeah, it to me, it doesn't really mean anything because the relationship I've had with my biological mother, she says, oh, I love you and all this kind of stuff, but then it's I don't talk to you for years. So to me, it's because of that, I love you doesn't really
Those words
mean
have
anything to
become
me.
somewhat meaningless.
For me, there are certain things that no matter what, I always do for my wife. So even if we fight, even if we've had some knockdown, drag out brawls, it happens. Once you get past that first year, that honeymoon stage, and real life starts to hit you, you have disagreements, you have arguments. And no matter what, no matter how, and this is, if you guys know me personally, you know what my job is, and there's a certain amount of risk that it's involved with my job. Every morning, no matter what happens the night before, I always kiss my wife while she's sleeping, and I tell her I love her, and I tell her to have a great day.
While she's sleeping?
I wake up super early.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I wake up around 4:00 in the morning every day, and then I leave the house no later than about 6:30. And she'll still be sleeping because she works a lot later than I do. And no matter what, I'll always kiss her goodbye, and I'll always tell her I love her, and I always tell her, have a great day. You mean the world to me, whatever it is. And I'll always text her about an hour later once I'm into work, and I'm like, hey, this is, I'm here, I'm safe, I love you, have a great day, thinking of you. And we'll text throughout the day. So for me, telling my wife I love her is telling her I love her, and it's for me, our love language, it's weird, is sending each other memes and just things on Instagram. She'll send me 42 things on Instagram before she even answers my text message, because that's how we communicate. And it's a way of us showing, hey, thinking about you, because at the end of the day, her and I are best friends. And that's our love language is memes, I guess. But I like to shower her with things every once in a while. Hey, here are flowers. Why? Because.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, that's the best time to give them.
Because the thing I hate about gifts is when you give them when you did something wrong. There's a big misconception about flowers are done on special occasions or when you done messed up, Ron. For me, it's hey, I got you flowers. Why? Because.
Yeah.
Mostly because they're on sale.
Yeah.
It's the day after Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
What about you, Rob?
I think for me, it's a couple different things, and I have to say, in hearing the two of you, I've got so many ideas and so many things to say, but there's no way I can get it all out. So I'll see what I can do. Letting her know that okay. This is something that I've learned recently. I'd say maybe in the past 3 or 4 months.
Going to both our bachelor parties
Is key. Sometimes I tend to get stuck get all in where I am and what I'm doing, and I forget about everything else that's going on around me. And so just that texting something during the day, or like sending her a meme or something, or a picture, just letting her know that I'm still thinking about her is a big way that I can do that. I'd say knowing when if you know her, you know that she is a fiercely independent, very strong woman who doesn't want to admit that she needs help. So the way I can show love to her is I can see when she's not doing well, and just to give her the support and carry her through that time. Like I will tell you, like today, she broke down in tears at work with her principal. Like they're friends, but she had she was very sad and broke down to her. And then she came home and she was telling me about it when we were on our walk with the dogs, and she started to cry. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, this is, usually for most people, tears is like a red flag right away. But for us, it's something deeper. It's like, wow, she can't do this on her own. And it's so bad that it's starting to come out in this way. So she needs someone to just meet her needs where she's at and try and support her as much as possible, because she can't do it for herself. So that's a big thing. I think that's probably the biggest love, the way I can show love in our household is figuring out and spotting a need and then filling it, but not, and this is something that I will pass along to my younger married people. Doing things around the house is not doing something for your wife. Paul's nodding in agreement. You've had this conversation before.
So the household is a joint responsibility.
Yes.
It is a very old school mentality that one person should be doing anything.
Right.
But is there something to be said about, like, here's an example. Melanie, when I came home today, Melanie was finishing lunch and she had like a bowl of whatever food, and she left it wherever she did, and I just grabbed it and I put it in the sink and I just did it. That's a love language.
That is.
Doing things like cleaning and whatever. That's
not.
That's
like,
a joint family responsibility.
Like how would she react if when she came home you said, "Honey, I vacuumed while you were out"?
She would go, "I vacuumed 42 times." But also, like, and the thing I respect most about what you're saying, Rob, is for me, I learned the hard way how to support my wife. Melanie is the kind of person that when something's going on with her, she same way as Lauren. She's the exact same as Lauren, where she has to deal with it her way, in her own terms, on her own perspective.
I sensed that because right before the show, we were all helping her hang a lamp from the ceiling.
Which I specifically said, "Do you want to wait for the guys to get here?"
I said to her at one point, because she looked like she was struggling to hold it up there, and I said, "Do you want us to help?" Because you don't ever say this. Do you need help?
Yeah.
Don't ever say that, because then that's indicating what you think I can't do this. But if you say, "Would you like help?" that's different. So I said to her, "Would you like help?" And she said, "Yes, I would, but I will never ask for it."
And it's the truth. But for me, like, one of the hardest things I ever learned with my wife, who I love to death, when she's upset or when something's going on, she shuts down because she needs to process it, which is fine. But as an insecure person, that's me. And for those of you guys who like know me, you're like, "You insecure?" You're like the most loud, obnoxious, confident person next to Ronnie. Like, for me, it's when somebody's like quiet or reserved, or I think I did something wrong, and I constantly go out of my way. "Oh, what did I do? Like, can I help? What do I do?" And it took me a long time to realize that, like what Rob was saying, is you need to be the support that they need.
Yeah.
And that's speaking their love language. So I think you got some more questions, right, Rob?
I do. I most of them are about love, because I'm feeling this out as we're going along here.
Especially because we only have about 10 minutes left.
Yeah, I figured. So how do you expect your spouse to show you love? And all right, actually, I got a better question. When you don't get the love that you need, how do you express that to them?
Ronnie, you're up first.
I'm up first.
Well, you are at that point in your marriage, just starting, but like with not a short-term relationship by any stretch, but Communication
yeah.
is one of the most important things that you're going to have to learn, and I'm still learning it. Rob's obviously at a point where he knows it better.
No,
I didn't say he's an expert at it. But
every time I think I know what I'm doing, I'm
so wrong.
Vastly overstated in that.
But one of the most
maybe me and Jacqueline are just perfect. No, I'm just kidding.
That must be
I'm
it.
just kidding. I'm just kidding. So, for me,
yeah.
my love language is quality time.
Okay, so
Right.
when you don't get that quality time,
So for instance, like if we are in bed or something like that, right?
it's getting spicy.
No, but so again, I get home kind of late, and we'll eat dinner together for the most part, unless she's hangry, then she'll eat without me. But so like at that time, like we'll sit, we'll watch TV, or we'll just talk about our day, depending on things and everything. And then we go out to bed, we'll lay in bed, we'll watch TV, and like she'll be on her phone, right? Which again, I've done before and everything. But for me, quality time, like we're supposed to be together. Let's forget about the outside world, right? So if she's like on her phone while we kind of want that quality time of being together, we like, what do you want on your phone again? Right? Like things like that, where it's like, this is our time, not, your time to be, like on your phone.
so
or
you
whatever.
will say that to her?
Yes.
So
I
how do you say that without starting a fight?
Just like that, because he's
literally just like that.
Literally just like that.
And she'll be like, I'm just doing this, or I'm just doing that, or whatever, like things like that. Like the other, so we have a routine together where usually on Fridays, not this Friday because I had something to do for work, but on Fridays we go to a coffee shop near us, and we'll do work, but we'll be together, right? Like she'll do work for her personal training business. I'll be doing work, whether it's, podcast related kind of stuff, with the website or the store and everything, or I'll be, doing work for my actual, career and everything. And, just even that, like I know we're doing work, but we're spending time together, so we make sure that, we find time to have that quality time. And if something comes up where we can't do our, morning coffee shop or, kind of thing or whatever in the week, like it gets me, and I'm like, so we're going next week, right? So it's,
right.
It's just, hey, she knows it's quality time for me is like my big love language. So she knows, like, when I'm asking for it, she knows, all right, I'll put the phone away, I'll do this, I'll do that, to right. love you.
So I'm going to ask you this question because I already know your answer, so I don't have to ask you this question. Paul, have you gotten to the point where just being in the same room with one another is no longer spending quality time with one another?
So Mel and I have a unique situation in that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we only have about an hour of time with each other. And it's because of, her work schedule, my work schedule. On Mondays, I work till about 8:30, 9 o'clock. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, she's working till about 7:30. So there is a point where we're in the same room together, but we also respect that she's maybe doing one thing while I'm doing the other. Just being in the same room for us is still spending that quality time. It's, even if she's a big World of Warcraft fan, so she might be playing World of Warcraft while I watch, one of my shows that she doesn't watch, like Young Justice or whatever. So on those days, we'll maybe watch an episode or something together, and then I'm like, well, I have to go to bed. I have to get up. So for us, it's about finding, there's at least one night. Thursday nights are date night for the most part, unless something happens like last night. We're recording on a Friday, just so you guys know. It gets released on Wednesdays, we know. But last night I had to work. So I was like, hey, I can't do date night. Right. So we went out to dinner, before the three of us started recording. So I do think that there's a point where we're in the room together and we're doing our own thing, but I'll never say that it's not. I always tell her, I'm like, it's still time that we're together, but we also respect that we're doing other things.
I have found, and the reason I ask this, because I have found in marriage that in the beginning, just being in proximity is spending time together. But at some point, that stops. Like we realized at some point that just sitting and watching TV with each other isn't necessarily quality time. You're with each other, but that doesn't mean you're engaging with one another.
Right.
So like that's why it's great for us. You know, we have the 2 dogs, so we will go on walks, and during that time we get to talk, we decompress, we try not to talk about our days too much, but that's time we actually get to be with one another, and we'll schedule things throughout the week where we can be with one another. But I'm wondering if that's the progression of our relationship, or if it's the progression of most relationships.
I think it's most relationships.
Yeah.
Like we all get into routines, and we all get in. That's why it's very important for Mel and I to have at least one date night where it's no podcast, no work, no we talk about like what happened at work, but for us, Melanie and I love talking about goal setting. We are constantly talking about.
I didn't know that.
We love talking about. All right, here are things that we want to do, especially when we're on vacation. Mel and I, like, we are constantly talking about. All right, so you're doing Bibliophiles Assemble. What do you want to do? Book clubs, stickers, shirts, whatever. For me, it's like, I want to book this many interviews. I want to, sit down with the guys and do, T-shirts and this and topics and this. So for us, it's a lot more, because it's easy to talk about your day. And I'm not downplaying anybody who just, who talks about their day. I think it's an important part of any relationship. Like, half the fun things that we talk about are like, especially like, me and Rob or me and Ronnie, we talk about like the weird interactions we have with kids.
Yeah.
Like that's what we talk about. And it's always fun. But I think for me and Mel especially, it's very important that even though we spend time together, watching an episode of Supernatural or doing this, there is at least one night during the week where it's, hey, this is you and me time.
So how do you express to her when you are not getting your needs fulfilled? How do you express it in a way?
I've learned to just say it to her.
Okay.
Because there was a point where I didn't, and I held it in, and it's what you mentioned. It's bottling it up.
Yeah.
And it would either lead to an explosive argument, or it would lead to me coping in unhealthy mechanisms. And that's a whole other podcast episode. But there have been plenty of times where I've coped in ways that aren't good for me, whether it's binge eating or overworking out, like just to feel that I'm getting that accomplishment. And it wasn't until my wife and I made it to a point where I would tell her, hey, I'm feeling this because I'm not getting this.
That's good.
That our relationship took a total 180, and it was like a brand new avenue, and we're both getting better at it, which is
that's the key to marriage, is that you're never going to have it down.
It's about constant improvement.
Yeah, and open communications and everything. And a big thing that I think, and I'm sure you two gentlemen will agree with, is also knowing how your significant other deals with problems and challenges.
Oh, absolutely.
And, like when they're upset and how they react and what they need done, right? A lot of people, like myself, is when I'm feeling upset, I need to walk away. I need to, get in the right mindset, and then I'll have a conversation with you. Some people just want to have that conversation right away. Some people don't even want to have the conversation, just bottle it up and everything.
Shut down completely.
And shut down and everything. So you also have to kind of know, the way your significant other responds to situations like that, where it's like, all right, I know this, my significant other needs to walk away, take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, and then we'll have a conversation.
So I'm going to ask you a follow-up, but first I want to answer the follow-up.
Yeah.
The original question.
Well, first I want to answer the follow-up, which will lead me to the original question. So my follow-up to you is, in what way do you express a need not being met in a bad way that you're learning to alter as you get older and develop? So I'll start with that. So, thankfully, I think I've always had a problem, like what Paul was saying a little bit, expressing what my needs are. I think I've always been a little insecure and a little nervous about it, because I felt like it would either get dismissed or turned around or rejected or something like that. So I didn't learn to express it as well, and that was my poor practice that I put into place, and that I would just sort of like, I would get introspective, I would get down and depressed and get kind of whiny and everything. And now I've learned a little bit to just say, hey, I want to do this. And she'll know, oh, he must be feeling a need, so I'm going to just go along with this with him. So, like, I don't know if I ever truly figured it out on how to express it, but she learned how to be intuitive with me with that. When I do ask for something, she knows it's coming from a place of need. So my follow-up then to you is, what way do you express that you need something in not the right way that you're learning to overcome?
I'll go first because this is a struggle that I've been dealing with. I seek outside validation. So Ronnie and I grew up in an environment, the Taekwondo environment, the martial arts environment, which put a lot of emphasis on physicality, and not necessarily in a bad way, but you got recognition for being physically better. Right. Our martial arts instructor, Grandmaster Paul Malella, who is a mentor to both of us, he is arguably in peak physical condition. He is, he's swole AF, as the kids say.
Yeah.
And like that's part of, our training. And it was very hard growing up being a kid with asthma and a little bit on the heavier side and seeking validation and just not ever being the star athlete, the star student. But when I started like really taking control of my physicality and my physical body, I got a lot of positive attention. Mm-hmm. And for me, when my needs aren't getting met, I seek it outside, just that validation. Like, oh, you look so good. Oh, you're looking really whatever. So for me, it is a very unhealthy, and also eating. Eating is a terrible coping mechanism that I have because I'm a little fat boy at heart, and I'll be the first to admit it. And it's only in my more recent years with my wife's support that I finally found the balance of enjoying life, but also not depriving myself. And Ronnie will attest to this. Like, he remembers when he and I first started working out, I was doing like 5 shakes a day and barely eating.
Yeah.
Like, there was a point where I was borderline anorexic, and it was a terrible time for my life. And it's only in more recent years that I've finally, and with a lot of support, again, a whole other podcast episode, the amount of support that I got, not just from my wife, but from outside sources. But I fully believe that realizing what your shortcomings are and where you're feeding unhealthy mechanisms is an important part of not only growing as a person, but also growing as a partner. Because at the end of the day, I want my wife to be happy. I want me to be happy. Yeah. So, it's important. Ronald? Perfect.
Basically. No, I think what I do is, which I don't do anymore, is I drink a lot. Or I should say I used to, right? So
even you and I both. Like,
so even before Jacqueline, it was, I wasn't feeling good. All right, let me crack open a beer. Let me eat all this food, right? I don't give a shit, basically. But with Jacqueline, her being a personal trainer and everything, eating better, not drinking nearly as much, nowhere near as much as I used to and everything. So like that was one way that I did that I currently don't do. But for me, I like to deflect.
Especially with humor.
No, I'm fucking good at that.
High five for humor, Bose.
High five for uncensored.
Yeah, right. But I like to deflect. I like to just shut down.
How do you deflect?
So if we're arguing about something, I'll do one of two things. I will just agree and be like, "Yep, no, okay," and just that's it.
Okay.
We're
so kind of shutting down.
So shutting down
by agreeing.
Yeah. A lot of times, not necessarily with Jacqueline, but just in general, when confrontation happens, I will deflect, and I'll just be like, they'll say something about me, and I'll be like, but what about you? No, it's not just me. It's you too. Like, it's like, no, let's stop talking about me. Yeah. Let's talk about what you're doing, which you do need. You need to have that communication. But what I would do, and which I'm working on, is not saying, what about you, being more understanding of what the person is saying, receiving that information, taking it to heart, but then also being like, well, let me speak my piece now.
Yeah.
Is the key is we can't be afraid to speak our piece and be afraid to hurt our significant other's feelings at that moment. Obviously, we don't want to hurt their feelings or make them upset, or anything. But if you're feeling some type of way, you can't keep that inside of you. It's not healthy because it comes back to bottling things up. If you're not communicating the way you should be communicating, eventually you're going to explode. The top's going to pop off, and it's not going to be pretty.
On building on that, my parents, I used to actually brag to my friends that my parents don't fight. They never fight. They always get along. And what I eventually found out is that they were bottling it, and they were not fighting in front of me.
Right.
That's the key thing is when you have kids is you don't fight in front of the kids. In a little bit. You don't want to. It's good to see for your kids to see, yes, they're human. It's not a perfect relationship because there's no such thing as perfect, So, but to have fights consistently in front of your kids is something you don't want to do.
It is important, though, I think, because as a result of my parents never fighting in front of me, I never learned how couples resolve conflict.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I never saw what happens when one or two people in a relationship are angry. How do they resolve that? And so I had to learn how to do that because I never knew. In fact, whenever we fought, I thought there was something wrong with us because my parents never fought. But it just turned out that they were doing it not in front of us, or they were just, my mother was bottling it or something.
I'm going to use my kid as the tiebreaker. When mom and dad fight, all right, you're up, Junior.
Yeah, right.
But we do fight in front of our son. Obviously, it's not it doesn't get ugly. I mean, there are some times where Lauren will go. Lauren has a temper, and
yeah, she does. And I mean that totally respectfully.
Oh no, I didn't take it disrespectfully. Don't worry.
In case there's one episode of our show she listens to.
She does have a temper, and sometimes she gets. It's genetic. Everyone in her family has that same temper, and it flares out sometimes. And after a fight, if it's in front of Timmy, she will say, I said things I shouldn't have said, and I'm really sorry. There's value to that. I'm saying I made a mistake, and I in front of them, so children understand. How do you resolve when you have gone too far? Because let's face it, our kids are going to go too far at points. And
I think it's important for kids to know that people go too far. All the time.
Yeah.
But it's also, we're adults because we realize it. Especially nowadays, there's a big discussion about kids and social boundaries and discipline and that's a whole other, and Rob's a teacher. So he sees it. Ronnie works with kids, I work with kids. So I think it's a very healthy attitude that you can have disagreements in front of your kids. Yeah. But I'm sure Rob will attest to this, there's a point where it's we're done doing this in front of our son.
Yeah.
So I didn't mean to cut you off. I just got super excited.
So it sounds like from the way we don't deal with this in healthy ways is I get mopey and introspective and whiny and depressive. Paul seeks outside validation, and Ronnie either deflects or he used to go to substance.
Yes.
And those are all three things that I'm sure the three of us probably still struggle on some levels with all of those things. And we probably always will, and that's okay. But the knowledge that we do struggle with that and we are working to overcome that, I think says something about our desire to have a good and healthy marriage for all three of us.
So that's pretty much going to bring us to the end of the episode. And you know what? I know this was a little bit more of a serious topic. I know a lot of times when we do interviews, it's fun, it's bubbly, it's this and that. But in all honesty, MF Uncensored is about talking about the things that people aren't talking about. People that are, you might be interested. First and foremost, guys, if you are dealing with any of those issues, there's nothing wrong with seeking outside help. There's nothing wrong with saying you need help. And whether it's expressing it to your significant other or finding, somebody to help you outside, nothing wrong with that. Like, seriously, it's 2022. Like, there's a big push about mental health and about feeling good, and not letting other people dictate how you feel. So thank you guys for listening to this. This is a lot of fun, a lot of interesting topics, a lot of points, and a lot of insight. And if you guys enjoyed the episode and you want to hear more in this topic, just let us know. You can find us on our website, themisfitfaction.com. You can also find us on Facebook, MF Uncensored. It's a Facebook page. You can also find our Facebook group, the Misfit Faction Media Network. It is a private group, but all you have to do is just request. And Ronnie will be like, hey, I'm at my coffee date, but except because he's doing work at coffee date. You can also find us on any social media. Basically, if you type in the Misfit Faction, you'll find us on Instagram, Twitter, which I do use, even though Ronnie made fun of me in one of our podcasts. YouTube. I think the only thing we don't have is LinkedIn. So just type in Misfit Faction, you'll find us. But I want to thank Ronnie and Rob for staying a little extra late tonight. And because normally we don't. We're done after the first episode.
It definitely sounded like you said a little extra.
A little extra?
I love how he slurs when he gets very excited. When he gets very excited and he's on a roll, the words kind of blend.
Not to mention he's about 5 glasses of wine in.
Not to mention I do the editing, so nobody heard anything you guys just said. No. But no, it's actually, in all honesty, it's because Paul usually does these parts by himself on MF Uncensored. So if you guys want more of this type of episode, please let us know, because interviews are fun, but also topics are good too. So as always, I'm Paul.
I'm Ronnie.
I'm Rob.
And we will be back next time, and not in a flash like on Multiverse Fancast. Take care, guys.
Oh.
Bye-bye.